I've never seen anything like what happened to 19-year-old Amy Robinson in Arlington, Texas in 1998.
This case has a real sense of emergency.
There is a fear and apprehension that is really palpable. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing it on the news. The longer she went missing, the more you knew that something terrible had happened to her.
The thing about this case is that the victim is so defenseless and trusting, and to think that people that she thought were her friends would be this horribly cruel is what makes this case really stand out.
As soon as she started walking, just wow, shot her in the back of the leg. After seeing what happened, I died laughing. I thought it was all a joke.
Anyone who sees the interviews with Amy Robinson's killers is going to know they were looking into the eyes of pure evil. I didn't handle this case personally because it happened in Tarrant County, but the prosecutors that did take it to trial are the best. This was Christy Jack's first death penalty case. That one you never forget. A victim like Amy, you never forget.
I am a mother, but this was a case that spoke to everyone, whether you were a parent or not. Something cried out for justice in her case, more so than any other case I've ever been involved with.
February the 15th of 1998 at about 4:15 in the afternoon. We received a 911 call from Ben Grogan, who wanted to report that his daughter, Amy, had left for her job at a Kroger store at about 12:30 and has never arrived.
February 15th, me, my mom, and my little sister were hanging out at the apartment. We get a call from Ben saying that the manager at Kroger can't find Amy. My heart dropped because I knew something was wrong.
Amy was steady Eddie. She's going to do exactly what she does every day. And if she's out of that pattern, it's something bad.
I mean, I didn't know what to do. That's the worst feeling in the world, is not knowing where your child's at.
I remember getting that feeling in your stomach like, oh no.
Because of her condition, Amy was even more vulnerable, let's say, to people who might want to do a young woman harm.
Amy was 19. In her mind, though, she's like about 14. She was just slow.
Amy has a condition called Turner syndrome. There's a genetic condition that turns out only affects females. So it made her a little more developmentally slow, a little smaller than average. But she still wanted to be independent. She was proud of herself for getting a job. She wanted to have her own life.
The day that Amy Robinson went missing, her father told us that she had a green Huffy mountain bicycle, and she had her Kroger uniform shirt in a plastic bag, and that she had left home and went on to Division Street, which was a direct route towards the Kroger store, and that was the last she was seen.
That part of Division Street's a pretty rough area of town. Nobody drove bicycles up and down Division Street except for Amy. My brother and I both told her not to ride her bicycle, just to ride it over to the shop, which we was directly across the street from our house. And we'd take her. But Amy was independent. She just wanted to do it on her own.
That was her way to and from work. It meant everything to her.
We had no direction on where to go search. There's not a bicycle somewhere. Nobody's seen anything. I mean, you're just blindly walking the railroad tracks and the lake. You're searching, but you got no clues. You wanted to hope that she's going to pop up and everything's okay.
We literally just start walking down Division Street, walking, searching.
And the minute they sounded the alarm that Amy didn't show up for work, the Arlington Police Department were right away putting out the bolo, being on the lookout for her. It was on the news. They were doing grid searches.
From the start, this case has a real sense of emergency. The police are treating it unlike your typical missing person report of a teenager.
A helicopter was flown in the area between Amy's home and the Kroger store.
The police were everywhere, but we just couldn't sit at home and watch the news. It was like, no, get out there, let's find her.
There is a feeling of fear and apprehension that is really palpable. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing flyers or seeing it on the 4 o'clock, the 5 o'clock, the 10 o'clock news. The fact that she was missing was everywhere in Arlington.
Bring her home safe. Don't do nothing. Let her go.
You have to believe that the Arlington Police Department is truly invested in finding this young lady who's also mentally challenged, who's sweet and naive.
You're just on pins and needles. If we heard sirens, we're running out the door. Did they find her? Did they find her?
I couldn't sleep. I didn't eat. I mean, it was just horrible.
Amy's family is going through hell. They couldn't be looking any harder.
Me and my mom and sister searched day and night from sun come up to sun go down. And my daughter's 1, so I'm carrying a baby on my hip, just screaming her name, just screaming, knowing that something bad's happened, but hoping we would find her alive.
As we are pursuing the investigation, we interview her co-workers. We learned that Amy was universally liked by everybody.
She used to bag our groceries all the time. She's a nice kid.
We also talked to some of her former work associates, and 2 of those were Robert Neville and Michael Hall.
I was asked to make contact with Robert Neville, a young man who worked with Amy, because some of the people at the store had said him and Amy Robinson were sort of in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation. But when questioned, Robert Neville said, no, we were just kind of friends through work.
They were both sackers. I think she enjoyed his attention. They went to the Kroger Christmas party, as a matter of fact, one year. And then there came a point when Robert met Amy's father, and Amy's father put his foot down and said, you're not allowed to see him anymore.
Robert Neville was questioned about his whereabouts on February the 15th, the day Amy went missing. He described going to the Kroger store, kind of in and out, and he went to the mall with his friend Michael Hall, and they played video games and hung out at the mall for a number of hours. He was respectful, didn't seem that he was lying to us, but Robert Neville had a criminal history, so we asked for him to take a polygraph test.
Robert Neville passed the polygraph, although he is marginal.
The marginal passing score is sort of a gray area.
I look at it as perhaps a lack of empathy, and all that does keeps me focused on Robert Neville until one way or another I can either clear him or be a part of his arrest. Robert Neville's alibi is investigated. When we go down and look at the surveillance cameras at the Parks Mall, Robert Neville and Michael Hall are together, but we are not able to definitively state that Robert Neville is accounted for his entire day. We also talked with his friend, Michael Hall. Michael Hall told us that he is a friend of Amy Robinson.
Michael Hall is a young man who came from a very troubled background. He came from a broken home. He himself struggled in school, not to the same extent as Amy, but he also had some special education classes.
He told us he did not know anything about Amy's disappearance, and we're not seeing anything that brings Michael Hall to the surface as a potential suspect. After about 3 days of actively looking for Amy Robinson, we had a woman come forward who said she saw a person who she believes is Amy Robinson talking to an individual who had a red pickup truck, and that she saw this individual put Amy's bicycle into the red pickup truck. She told us that the individual that she saw was a white male in his 40s to 50s. Clearly visible in the bed of the El Camino is a crossbow and a couple of double-edged knives. They are armed and dangerous.
The drama that is unfolding over days is shocking.
Get out of my sight!
It's been 4 days since 19-year-old Amy Robinson went missing. And because of her special needs, law enforcement and her family are searching for her around the clock, but with no luck so far. So while the police are continuing to search for Amy, a witness comes forward with new information.
The information our witness tells us is similar to another case, the Amber Hagerman case from 1996. Amber was riding her bicycle in an abandoned parking lot.
The vacant lot where Amber disappeared now has bright pink ribbons, bright enough to draw attention, and volunteers hope it might bring forward other witnesses.
We had a witness who actually saw Amber kidnapped by a man driving a pickup truck.
It was just a few short years prior that this happened to Amber in the very same community. Amber was found a few days later, murdered.
I was just like, it's that same person, like, he's back.
The Amber Alert as we know it today, it started because of the Amber Hagerman case. Before Amber Alert, let's say a child went missing in Houston. I don't think we even told Harris County. It was very localized, really inefficient. The Amber Alert now, it's all over the news. It comes up on your phone. It's on the highway. There's no telling how many different abductions and kidnappings and murders that Amber Alert has prevented.
Amber's mom was out there daily with my mom searching. That woman was a saint. She helped my mom through this because she went through it with her daughter, so she was able to relate with my mom.
After 4 days, police are definitely up against a ticking clock. The more that time expires, the less likely we are for a pleasant outcome.
I knew that something bad happened. You know, so the only thing you can do in a situation like that is just keep searching.
Can't escape from this sinking feeling.
Amy was just a beautiful baby. Her mother was 15 years old, not married, and she didn't know how to take care of her. And she just left her with me.
Amy's just kind. She's just kind and gentle.
Amy is a person who didn't ever see any evil or bad or anything in anybody. I think it was just her nature. She just didn't believe anybody had bad in them.
Amy was in our Special Olympics. She was in the races.
Turner syndrome did not stop her from doing anything.
She was smart. She applied herself. Last year of high school, me and her grandpa stayed up at night helping her with her homework, get her through that last year. And when she graduated, she put that diploma up like that in front of me. So we did it, Nene. I said, I know. I was so proud of her.
Amy Robinson is out there somewhere, and somebody knows something.
We were looking for this specific model of pickup truck, but the searches really brought back nothing. So people were very concerned. And when something horrific happens in a nice, quiet, small town, it really throws people a curve.
The entire community cares and wants to solve this, and they want to believe that she'll be okay and there'll be a happy ending.
We had candlelight vigils. Everybody came, we would light candles and pray. They were massive. Like, it would fill that whole Kroger parking lot up. And Kroger offered a $10,000 reward for information on bringing Amy home.
The police and Kroger were as helpful as they could possibly be, but here again, they had no clues. You wanted to hope that suddenly she's going to pop up and everything's okay, but you knew it was coming.
Police have searched a creek near Amy's home. Friends and family members are also involved. The FBI, the Department of Public Safety, even the Texas Rangers have been contacted.
And then someone came forward with the break that the Arlington Police Department has been waiting for.
Michael Hall's mother, Karen Hall, comes to the police station with some information. She explained that Michael's stepbrother told her that Michael Hall basically gave a full confession about how he and Robert Neville took Amy out to this wooded area and Michael Hall and Robert Neville took Amy out to this wooded area and they killed her.
Nearly 2 weeks into the investigation, Michael Hall's brother tells their mother what Michael told him. And Michael Hall's brother was the first development in this case, telling the truth about what his brother told him. And the mom, to her complete credit, went forward with what she knew and told law enforcement what happened.
I was approached with someone that told me that Michael told him about Amy Robinson's death in detail.
It was a pretty good description of how she possibly could have died or been killed. And it made me sick.
When someone tells on their own blood, it is a rare thing.
I think Michael told his little stepbrother because it was a secret and it was weighing on him and he felt he needed to share. But he also said, when he told his little brother, that if anyone told the police, he'd kill them.
The stepbrother of Michael Hall didn't provide specifics as to Amy's whereabouts, but this is a major break in the investigation.
And based on that information, while we do not have Amy's body, we have every reason to believe that she had been murdered.
Warrants are drafted for both Michael Hall and Robert Neville.
Deep down inside, Amy's family was holding out hope that Amy's still alive. When they're told this, I think it took them a while to absorb it.
She's a very happy child. How could they hurt her? How could they do this to her? Looking at these pictures kills me.
I never dreamed about her being murdered. No way. No way. Like Amy said, you think about the best, don't think about the bad. So I'd always think about the best, you know.
Growing up, I was always the one that had her back. But I wasn't able to protect her. I should have been there. It was devastating. It still hurts.
Murder in Texas means you have to prove that there's an intentional taking of a life. It doesn't mean it has to be deliberate or well thought out ahead of time. There is no premeditation requirement. I used to say that fast. If I intend to take your life, if I pull the trigger, that's murder. But to elevate it to a capital murder, you need an underlying felony. Here, the possibility of kidnapping exists.
Michael Hall's mother also tells us that Michael Hall is missing. And he's been gone a couple of days, as has Robert Neville. These guys are on the run and have about a 3-day head start on us.
We're pleading for my son safe and return. Same time, my heart aches for the loss of her daughter.
Texas has got so much borderline with Mexico. You can cross into Mexico any number of places. If you're a Texas citizen, you can walk across any number of international bridges.
Imagine how that feels. You know that your baby is probably murdered when you're being real with yourself, and the two people that everyone believes did it is on the run, and they're about to leave the United States of America forever. How frustrating, how horrible would that be?
Totally devastated. I'm in shock. I just want him to come home. This is not my son that they're talking about.
At this point in our investigations, we got a call from a car dealership in the middle of Arlington. We learned that Robert Neville purchased a car, and the car had some mechanical problems. So the car dealership, they gave him an El Camino to drive. And he returns the El Camino to the dealership. The owner of that dealership contacted the Arlington police, and they tell us that clearly visible in the bed of the El Camino is a crossbow. And in the passenger compartment of the El Camino are a couple of air guns and a couple of double-edged knives. So we considered both of them potentially armed and dangerous.
Unless these guys are stopped, Neville and Hall are more than likely going to kill again. In Eagle Pass, Texas, there's an international bridge into Mexico. Michael Hall and Robert Neville were stopped as they were en route over the international bridge in Eagle Pass.
Their demeanor just doesn't seem right to the agents, so they talk to them, search their backpacks, find pellet pistols, wine coolers.
Those officers on the border ran the names and the birth dates, found that these guys are wanted for murder in Arlington, Texas. So they took them to the Eagle Pass jail. My supervisor says, go home and pack a bag. We're going to go to Eagle Pass and interrogate these two that are in custody.
When APD was racing to the border to get to the suspects, there's a worry that they could lawyer up and we would never know where Amy is. But boy, look what happened.
There was a customs agent that talked to them. They seemed almost happy to be in custody, and they're telling this agent anything and everything he wants to hear. Robert Neville and Michael Hall wound up giving him sufficient descriptors that we now have a place where we can go search for Amy's body. You know, if you get too emotionally involved in something, you can't think. If you can't think, you can't do your job properly. So for me, in finding Amy's body at that point in time, it was all about securing the entire area as a crime scene. It was two other detectives and myself. The two other detectives went to the right, or what would be east, looking for Amy's body, and I went to the west. And if you look back in there to where basically between those two cottonwood trees, there was an area of grass, and when I walked into that, I could see Amy's body laying there in the grass. She was not camouflaged or anything like that. She'd been in the field since February the 15th. You know, I've been looking at her picture every day. So even though I couldn't say with a scientific certainty that it was her, looking at her, her build, her size, her hair, there's no question in my mind that that was Amy Robinson. The two detectives that went to the east, as they were coming to me, they could see Amy's bicycle in the brush pile. No way for a child to die. No way for anybody to die.
When they told us they found a body in the field on Mosier Valley, all I could do was go to Amy's room at her dad's house and lay on her bed and cry because I knew it was her. I knew it was her. I just felt it.
still in my mind. I couldn't believe it was Amy. It was just horrible, horrible.
This is the part of the case where you know things are about to start happening. They have to get an autopsy done, charges need to be filed, and then Hall and Neville need to be brought back from the border.
As we learn about Hall and Neville's arrest, the team I'm on at the newspaper, we immediately start to think about how quickly can we get down there. That's what every other media outlet in the area is thinking. Eagle Pass is fairly remote. It's hundreds of miles from the nearest commercial airport. We had the idea to rent an airplane, and as a result, we're down on the ground in Eagle Pass before anyone else gets there.
How you doing? Just fine?
The news media got down there before Stanton could, and Robert Neville and Michael Hall both granted jailhouse interview.
Hey, Robert. Oh.
You never expect to encounter somebody who has done something just so horrific, and for them to be so eager to tell you about it.
What did you do?
I helped in killing Amy Roberts.
Why?
I'd probably have to say it was just for the adrenaline rush.
So we talked her into getting in the car. She kept rapping, "Well, I gotta get back to work. I'm gonna be late. I'm gonna be late." Well, you're late now.
There are a few things that will leave me speechless for a few minutes, but this was one of them.
As soon as she started walking towards the car, I just shot her in the back of the leg. Pretty good too, moving target.
What did she say at that point?
She kept saying, "Ow, that hurt, ow, that hurt." And Robert just busted out laughing.
Total lack of empathy or responsibility or contrition or anything. It's sick.
I remember my repulsion at seeing him on the TV screen.
I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, I was so shocked after seeing what happened that I died laughing. I thought it was all a joke.
I thought there were very few surprises left as a prosecutor, and I'd never seen anything like that when I watched them laugh.
These two guys bragging about what they did, I've never seen that before. That was crazy. So evil.
I can't believe this is on national TV. Everybody in the world is seeing these sick boys describe how they tortured and murdered my sister and laughed about it like it was a joke. It is sick.
You ever seen that movie, Natural Born Killers? That's how I describe them. They were natural born killers. They wanted to be famous.
Michael, are you sorry about what happened?
I really don't think about it.
I seen it, and of course everybody's seen it, and everybody called me after it happened. It's just evil that you don't see every day.
If I had been close to them and could have, I would have probably tried to kill them. That wouldn't have been what Amy would have wanted. No. She would have forgiven them.
Did you?
No. No. Only God can forgive them.
Less than a week later, after Amy's body was found and after the suspects had done their talking on television, Amy's family and friends laid her to rest.
Amy's funeral was massive. It was the biggest funeral I've ever seen, still to this day. I guess I felt peace about having her at the family cemetery, but I was angry.
I don't think funerals give you a peace. I would give my life to have Amy back.
The prosecution's getting ready for a trial of Michael Hall and Robert Neville. These two were really stupid. What these suspects said in this interview before they were able to invoke their rights or have a lawyer or be told to shut your mouth, it doesn't get better evidence than that. I'm sure that any lawyers that were ultimately going to represent them thought, oh my God, what have they done? But for the prosecution, I don't think what people know about is the stress that you have, making sure the family survives it. If you screw up any one thing or you don't get the death penalty, you let them down. The media attention also brings with it even that much more pressure and criticism. And there's always those people out there that secretly hope that you mess up. Cases like this can make your career, but they can also break your career.
I got involved in the case in March of '98. I've been responsible for the prosecution of thousands of cases. Something cried out for justice in her case, more so than any other case I've ever been involved with. I'm a mother with 2 boys, one of whom who has special needs. And so I have a particular sensitivity to this case. It's one thing to choose to take the life of another individual. It's something entirely different to see someone and to recognize their weakness and their vulnerability and to choose them because of those traits.
The prosecutors get the case and decide that they're going to be tried in separate trials.
In a death penalty case, you try them separately because Michael Hall's attorneys would have said that Robert Neville's criminal history would unfairly influence a jury against Michael.
Picking a jury on a death penalty case is unlike anything else you could ever do. It's that variation on the spectrum of, can you really give the death penalty if we prove it to you? After a while, it's just exhausting, and you just want to get done. But you can't let your guard down when you're picking juror number 11 or 12, because they're just important as 1 and 2.
Before the trial, most important is meeting with the victim's family. They have to trust you, and so you want to do everything as a prosecutor to make them feel as comfortable as they can given the circumstances. Robert Neville was tried first because, in our opinion, his case was the easier case and he was the leader. Had it not been for Robert Neville, I don't believe this crime ever would have occurred. The records go back a long time for Robert. He began setting fires as young as the age of 4. And not only do you have sexual abuse of children, there are multiple reports of Robert abusing animals. A neighbor saw him throwing kittens off of a roof. A cousin reported Robert tying a cat to a tree and beating it with a pole.
The very first death penalty case I ever had, and you don't really forget that one, had a victim who was mentally challenged. It makes the case different. It makes it stick out to you. It makes it even sadder and more tragic. I think that juries really understand that dynamic. In order for these defendants to be found guilty of capital murder, the state had to prove that there was a murder and also the underlying felony of kidnapping.
Neville's confessed to murder. That was easy. The hard part was circumstantially proving the kidnapping element. Robert Neville gave a statement that confesses to murder without the kidnapping. The defense took a legal challenge to it, that there was insufficient evidence of the kidnapping. In other words, Robert Neville is guilty of murder, but not capital murder, because there was no kidnapping. She voluntarily got in the car. The strongest evidence was the lack of restraints.
Neville's attorney is asking me whether or not there was any ropes or ligatures, tape, anything like that. There was not.
But you have to understand that kidnapping is not what you think of as classically defined kidnapping. The definition in Texas means by force, intimidation, or deception.
How do you know about being robbed? His videotaped confession allowed the jury to hear the words directly from Robert Neville.
My personal experiences with her, she trusts too many people. I mean, a stranger from out of nowhere could come by and offer a ride and she would take it.
When they were playing in the courtroom, you could see the jury's face just drop and you could see tears in their eyes.
You're just sitting there being quiet when you want to just jump across the counter and choke the guy.
We had already been planning on killing people, and I figured after we took Amy out there, it became reality.
As a prosecutor that handles a lot of death penalty cases, you have to be ready for the defense to present mitigation. Mitigating evidence is evidence that lessens your culpability or in any way makes you believe that life is warranted instead of death.
The defense was trying to say that Robert Neville committed this capital murder because he had lupus, which is offensive to people that suffer from lupus.
Lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease, basically where the body kind of attacks itself.
So then we put on the region's expert on lupus at UNT. He said, you can commit acts of criminal violence and also have lupus, but lupus doesn't make you go commit a horrific crime like this. One of the things you have to learn as a prosecutor is to channel your emotions into a closing argument, finding the right words that will touch those jurors' hearts.
She was an easy target. Her only fault is she trusted too many people. She didn't see this defendant for what he was. She didn't see his plan to take her life.
I wanted that jury to understand the last moments of her life were filled with someone laughing at her death.
When she laid there choking on her blood, do you think she could hear his laughter? Because this defendant, the personification of evil.
The evidence does not support the one element that the state has to have, and that's the kidnapping aspect.
There's always a concern that we would come up short. A jury has to be unanimous, and we were not sure what the jury would do.
Prosecutors asked a jury to show Robert Neville Jr. the same mercy he showed Amy Robinson, a mentally challenged teenager who was tortured and killed in a remote Fort Worth field.
There's always a concern that we would come up short. Could be one juror, just one out of 12. The jury came out and they were crying. It was my first death penalty case, and I remember thinking, oh no, they're crying. What does that mean?
We, the jury, find the defendant, Robert James Neville Jr., guilty of the offense of capital murder.
It's a catharsis.
It's a very onerous burden to ask a jury to live with that decision for the rest of their life. It's a lot.
The court to sentence you to death by lethal injection.
You know, I'm sorry for what you did, but you're going to pay for it.
Emotions ran high for both sides throughout the trial.
Get it out of my sight!
It was tough during the trial because that feeling that anything could happen, any little bitty thing could happen, these guys get away with this. But when we got the first one done, then I felt a lot better about the second one.
Christy Jack and her co-counsel have successfully sent Robert Neville to death row. Now they have to focus on the trial of Michael Hall.
His confession talked about how they told her they were going to take her to work, and they didn't. And that's how they got her into the car, and that they never intended to take her to work. And they took her to Mosier Valley and basically used her for target practice. And then he goes on to say, we went back to the body, and we went and ate dinner at Sonic with the money we took from her pocket.
Michael Hall's defense lawyers had a little bit more to work with because they could play the card of he wouldn't have been here if it weren't for Robert Neville. He would have never come up with this plan or idea or thought to hurt somebody like Amy. And I think that was their best weapon.
The defense dressed him the part. I mean, they put big glasses on him. They had him stare at a Bible in front of him the entire time.
Simply to listen to him talk, you don't immediately detect that he's mentally.
It was a far different image than what the jury saw on the videotaped confession.
He acted like and talked to me like he was in adolescence or that he was a young adult.
The challenge is convincing the jury that you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be eligible for the death penalty. We talked about all the decisions that Michael made, independent of Robert, that showed he was not intellectually disabled.
And who pointed and selected those 22s? Well, it wasn't Robert Neville, it was Michael Hall.
mental deficiency or being slow or not being as mean and cunning as the other co-defendants. It probably really is the truth. You have co-defendants, one is always more the leader than the other. The prosecution's job is to know it's coming and to be ready to answer that back. This is the part that this defendant played.
There was evidence that Hall was not as smart as Neville. There was no evidence that he didn't understand the difference between right and wrong.
And if any of you think this answer should be no, then I beg you, watch this tape.
As soon as she started walking towards the car, it just pow.
You know what he said. I helped kill Amy. Why? Because she trusted me. The very quality that enabled this defendant to deceive and prey upon someone who truly was mentally challenged is now the quality he wants to cling to save his life. If ever a defendant earned the death penalty, this man has.
The jury returns a sentence the same day. The jury finds Michael Hall guilty of capital murder. They sentence him to death.
They were given death, and it made me feel good that they couldn't hurt nobody else.
Robert Neville is executed in 2006.
Michael Hall is executed February the 15th.
The date that he's executed, it is the anniversary of Amy's disappearance.
What we wanted, we got. However, we thought that's what we wanted. You know, going to the executions, we're thinking, okay, we're gonna get closure, we're gonna feel better. But I didn't feel better. I felt angry, like this ain't fair. They went out too easy. They just got a shot and went to sleep.
I was glad it was finally all over, but I thought Amy's going to be remembered. That's when I put the cross up.
What this marker does represent is where people can come and pay their respects.
Started with one cross, and it's just grown and grown.
A lot of people started coming and putting their cross up. The next thing I knew, there was 120 crosses out there. I don't want anybody to ever forget Amy. She's going to be remembered. And I know where she's at.
A case like this, when you're representing and trying to get justice for a victim as sweet and naive as Amy, when it's resolved the way it should be and you get justice, it makes you able to get up and go again another day. It never gets any easier, but this is why you do what you do.
Oh, I looked the devil in the eye.
A mysterious man walks into a family-owned Houston wig shop on the busiest shopping day of the year and stabs 3 people in broad daylight for reasons that nobody can understand. Manny Silverio, a longtime employee at the wig shop, was murdered that day. The owners of the wig shop, Roland and Roberta Ingrando, were seriously injured, and their lives were forever changed.
Oh my God.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. So long to see you. Ooh. You look gorgeous.
So do you. You look just the same.
Thank you. 24 years went by.
Almost 25.
25 almost, yeah.
Wow. So the trial was in 2000.
Like yesterday.
Isn't it?
Every night I think about.
You want to talk about it? It's okay?
It's okay. I might cry, but...
That's all right. I'm crying too.
It was Friday the 27th of November. I decided to close early. So I went to go and lock the door, but he was faster than me. He barged in so fast, and Manny was there. She said, "You must be joking." I didn't even know he had a knife. I have the money in the drawer. I said, "You want money here?"
So weird.
But he wanted no money. Manny so screamed. She screamed one scream. Manny slipped as he ran away, but in 2 steps, he got it. He did it like this to slice. I don't know what I mean. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It was just something out of the horror movie. I couldn't believe this happened to us.
911, any police? Hello? Yes. I have an emergency case. We've been attacked by a robber. You've been attacked? Do you need an ambulance? Yes, please. Sound a line for ambulance. One person body blown and the other hurt bad.
Boy, it's heartbreaking for me now to hear this stuff. I could actually hear the complainant being assaulted while we're receiving the call in the dispatch office.
Day after Thanksgiving, 1998, just finished medical school and was doing my residency surgical training. And I'm on my way to my parents' house. My dog needed some extra dog food. I'm driving past where there's a wig store and there's a post office. And it's very interesting because I saw a 18 to 20-year-old kid or so, and it looked like he was holding something in his hand as he's running very, very quickly out of the wig store. That's very odd. Something is going on there. Being observant is super mandatory in a job like a physician. So I follow him slowly in my car, and he's running towards the back of the parking lot. He got into this brand new Lincoln Navigator. As I pull behind the car, I thought to myself, let me write down his license plate really quickly on a sheet of paper. And as he passes me up, I saw him just 3 quick glances of his face, and then he zooms off. Certainly his demographic of a young man running very quickly out of a wig store is off. Something's going on, something's wrong in the wig store. Maybe I could help. Right when I opened the wig store, nothing was normal. There was a lot of blood everywhere. And right in between the front and the back section of the store, I see a lady on the ground. There's 2 people screaming in the back section of the store. The lady that was screaming, she had some blood spots on her chest and her arms, and there was an older man there. Part of me just turns into doctor mode, and I turn the lady that was on the ground, and I try to resuscitate her, but her throat was completely cut. And there's no way to save her at all.
The officers are arriving at the scene. There's blood everywhere. Bloody curlers, blood on the phone that was used to call the police, wigs all over the place. And then as you walk into the store, you're going to notice the blood dripping along the floor. And it leads you into the rear of the store where the worst part of the crime scene is. And there's what we call it signs of struggle. This is a bad one. Now, you had 3 people stabbed. The 2 owners of the store, their husband and wife, Roberta and Roland Ingrando, were both transported to the hospital. The injuries are serious, especially with Roberta. She'd been stabbed 14 times. Her husband was stabbed twice. The other female was found dead, stabbed to death.
My mom worked at Wigs by Andre for over 24 years. She loved doing hair. She worked a lot with cancer patients, their wigs, their hair, making them feel good.
Making them feel like themselves again, which was very important.
She worked with Roberta and Roland Ingrando.
They had a friendship.
Roberta did the wigs with her, and Roland pretty much ran the office.
Black Friday after Thanksgiving. But we knew that was going to be a busy day for her.
I called her, I got to talking to her, and all of a sudden, I heard the doorbell at Wigs by Andre. And then she says, well, I've got to let you go. She goes, I got a customer that just came in.
No, that was a devil that came in.
Yes.
Oh my God, Dr. Beckman is freaking jackpot. He saw something wrong and wrote down the license plate number. That's really unusual in the real world. And he's crucial to this case. He is a witness from heaven.
When the investigators got the license plate number, they called it into the office. Hey, can you run down this license plate and tell us where it comes back to? The house that the vehicle's registered to came back to Mr. Goldberg on Dunstan Street, which is very close to the wig shop.
Yeah, suspect is white male, approximately 5'8".
When we arrived, we walked to the backside of the house and we see the Lincoln Navigator. The navigator is still warm to the touch, which indicated it had been recently driven. The only person at the home is the maid. She said that the homeowner was out of town for vacation.
When the officers are out there in front of the house, they're talking to the maid. They look up the driveway, they see a young white male that matches the description that the witness gave us at the scene walking towards them. He's a white male, late teens, early 20s, slim build, short hair.
We asked him who he was. He identified himself as Drew Goldberg, the homeowner's son. We informed him what we were there for. He said he didn't know, what we were talking about.
We can't search the navigator yet because it doesn't belong to him. He can't give consent. So we make a determination what to do next, which is to collect the vehicle so we can process it after we get a warrant.
And then we asked him for permission to do a search of his truck. And he's cooperative. We have a brutal murder that involves a knife. And during that search, we discovered a knife.
These journals were a window into a sick mind.
In his writing, there was a title, How to Kill Women. Do you feel pretty?
That's the things that he told Roberta as he's stabbing her.
When the knife was found in Drewer's pickup truck, it was a double-edged knife. But this is Texas. Everybody's got a knife. I got a knife in my purse, so that was not enough to lead to an immediate arrest. 20-year-old Drewer Goldberg had direct access to the vehicle that was seen driving away from the wig shop, and he matches the description provided by Dr. Beckman.
One of the things we discovered how close Goldberg lived to the location where the murder took place at his dad's house. If he wanted, he could have changed cars within a short period of time.
Drewer agreed to give a written statement. Drewer is asked, did you go to the wig shop today? Did you kill anybody today? And the answer to those questions were no.
Around the time that this incident took place, he really can't tell us where he was at or what he was doing. That's what we call an homicide clue. They took a Polaroid picture of Goldberg and they placed it in what we call a six-pack, a six-figure photo spread, and they presented it to the witness.
The photos were kind of a dot matrix type of a printing, and the print quality wasn't that great. However, I picked out Goldberg, and they asked me how certain I was, and I said about 80% or so, and they asked me why. And I said, well, it couldn't be 100% based upon the quality of the printing.
Drewer consented to a video lineup. We already had one witness that we're pretty sure can identify him. We're hoping that Mrs. Ingrando can identify him as the person that attacked her. But she's in rough shape at the hospital. Roland lost his glasses during the struggle. He felt that due to this, he didn't get a good look at the suspect. We didn't really have enough at this point, and we released Drewer to his mom.
Roland and Roberta were still injured and in the hospital that night. They needed a couple of days to recover in order to give a better ID. Dr. Beckman's identification, he pegged at 80%. Because of that, they chose to let Drewer Goldberg go that night without filing the charges to try and make the case better and stronger to satisfy the beyond a reasonable doubt burden of proof in the courtroom.
Miss Ingrando recovered to a point where they could talk to her.
Where were you when he started cutting on you?
I was
there?
right there. You want to
Come
go?
show me. Come show me.
I got the phone. He took off the phone and he sliced.
That's still your scar, huh?
Yeah, it's still the scarf there.
Oh.
Yeah. After he do this, he punches here. He punctured my lungs. He punctured my heart and my intestine, and here, all over. because, I was moving around and he just got all over my body. He just whispered in my ear. And he said, oh, now I'm going to cut your nose. I'm going to cut your ear. I'm going to make you pretty. And he started cut here, his neck, just.
You can still remember all that?
Yes.
I just sit in the office and work on papers, The thing that woke me up was the shrill, the death scream, Manny's death scream. So I just came in. He was holding Roberta up by the neck and stabbing her. When he saw me, he released her and she fell to the floor and tried to grab him by the neck. And that's when he sliced this hand and this part of the stomach there. I had thrown some curlers at him, and he just turned and ran out.
Before you fainted, do you remember you looked into his eyes?
Oh, yes.
How did you forget him?
How you can forget it? Memory never gonna fade. I always go around and see what I could have done for Manny not to be dead. What I should have done. It's really terrible.
The news is on in my bedroom. I'll never forget this as long as I live. The news is on, and all I see is the wig shop and yellow tape around, and they said 2 survivors. We drove to Ben Tom. In the waiting room, we went downstairs, and I was asking for my mom. They didn't have her. Roland's sister came up to me and said, I'm so sorry, Manny didn't make it. Manny didn't make it, and I couldn't believe what she was saying to me. And I passed out right there.
What was his motive for him to go in and kill and go? Why would he do this?
She was everything we had.
Yes.
She was 18 years old when she migrated from Cuba. She went to beauty school right away, and then she became a hairdresser. And that was her entire life. She loved doing hair.
Yes, she did.
And this is a beautiful picture.
This is the last Thanksgiving my mom had with my sister. She's in the back right here. She went to work, and, who would have thought that, I don't know, if...
It's all the what ifs. What if she wouldn't have gone to work that day?
Every day.
That is what we got to live with.
The primary thing you have that's really good is you have a living witness. Roberta, she recovered it to a point where the detectives presented her with a video lineup.
There was a lineup, but the guy said he was right by the end. But when I saw his eyes, I know it was him.
She was able to make an identification of the suspect. So the detectives knew they were on the right course, building their case. When you talk about murder cases today, evidence is super important. Everyone has watched these CSI shows for the last 20 years. And any circumstantial case that I've worked, I've always wanted to have one big thing. But this case, he didn't have a lot of little things. Eventually, we were able to obtain a search warrant to process the Lincoln Navigator with the plates that the witness wrote down for us at the scene. They were able to cover fibers that were consistent with those coming from a wig. How many people have wig hairs in their car?
The circumstantial evidence case against Dror Goldberg is building. We don't have any DNA evidence, and we don't have a motive, but those are not required in order to get an indictment for murder. But all of the little pieces of evidence that we do have point to Dror Goldberg. It took 3 months to get enough evidence to indict Dror Goldberg for the murder of Manny Silverio. And then HPD finds out that Dror is nowhere to be found when it's time to get him arrested. He's not here. Damn. It's been 3 months now since the attacks and murder at a family-owned wig shop here in Houston, and the evidence is still adding up against Dror Goldberg. We have positive identifications from both Roberta Ingrando and Dr. Beckman. And HPD processing the Navigator tells us that we have wig fibers found inside that vehicle. However, the knife found in Drawer's pickup truck is a double-bladed knife, and the medical examiner told HPD they were looking for a single-edged knife, so it's not the murder weapon. But we have enough evidence to get Drawer Goldberg indicted for murder, and then HPD finds out he's missing.
A Houston resident, investigators believe Goldberg is on the run.
You have to get Drawer Goldberg back to start the process of the criminal justice system. But Drawer Goldberg's parents tell the media that he's gone off traveling the world, but they're not able to reach him. I don't think anybody ever believed that. Nobody knows where he is. If you knew where he was, you could figure out whether or not you could get him arrested or in custody or extradited. But at that time, they didn't even know where to start looking.
No, people were randomly called. And in Houston, the Crime Stoppers was very popular. And then it was out in the media that Goldberg was among the missing. We had Goldberg sightings in Mexico. We had Goldberg sightings in New York. We had Goldberg sightings all over the place. It was like whack-a-mole. I'd get a clue and I'd run it down. There was nothing to it. Pre-9/11, you didn't have all this automatic scanning and you didn't have cameras in the airport. It was a little easier to disappear. We had no idea where this kid was.
Wherever he's hiding, we're going to find him. We'll shake this world, turn it upside down, but we will find him.
Our mother was not going to be just a number.
Yes.
We wanted to go out there and find answers.
The police held a press conference to tell us that he was nowhere to be found, so we held a press conference.
Anybody that's seen anything, just anybody, so please help us.
That's it. The media's going to help us.
While survivors walk the neighborhood armed with his picture, investigators say the suspect could be on the run overseas. He could be long gone.
That he could be long gone, exactly. We need him to come back to justice.
The media followed us. They followed us to put the posters out.
Day and night. They
followed us.
Yvonne and Yvette, they are a textbook example of what all families should do who've lost a loved one. They complained, they rallied, they hung up flyers, they tried everything.
How badly you want this guy?
I want him bad.
If all victims' families understood that they had the right to complain that loudly to get justice for their loved one, more cases would get solved in this country. Good for them.
Everybody thought we were just going to sit back and it wasn't going to happen.
It wasn't going to be that way.
We're too determined.
My mother deserved it.
Drawer Goldberg's family hired Dick DeGuerin. Dick DeGuerin had at that time fought and won a lot of very high-profile cases, and he had a formidable reputation, and he would do anything to win. You have to appreciate that everything that Dick does comes with the intimidation factor. Not just prosecutors and witnesses and cops, judges are intimidated by him too. When he walks in the courtroom, he commands the courtroom. His experience was way greater than mine back then. He was the best.
Goldberg's attorney says
he's not a fugitive. He's never been a fugitive.
Goldberg's attorney claims the suspect spent the last several months backpacking through the Middle East.
Drawer Goldberg is wanted for murder. He needs to be brought back to the United States so he can face charges.
The idea of it, he was traveling. I am suspect about that. I just think that he thought that he was above the law and sort of did whatever he wanted to do. He was not interested in surrendering himself at any time.
I got a hold of an FBI agent I work with, and we filed a federal flight to avoid prosecution warrant so that if he did turn up overseas, at least the agency that recovered him would be able to hold him for us.
We were just desperate.
Drawer Goldberg was on a layover in Frankfurt, Germany. And while he was at the Frankfurt airport, a very alert German police officer named Thorsten Rohrpach noticed he was acting a little funny and found his warrant in the system and arrested him.
At that point, we were very happy, and we started making arrangements to get him extradited back to the United States. We go to the airport, we accepted him from the U.S. Marshals, we drove to the police station. The whole way I'm in the car with Drawer, he's saying, my lawyer's Dick DeGuerin, my lawyer's Dick DeGuerin. And I'm not saying anything, but I'm thinking, yeah, well, my lawyer's Kelly Siegler.
Then we hear, $20,000 to get him out. And we were livid.
I was really surprised that this was allowed to happen. After all the difficulty we had in locating him, that he was allowed to walk out once he posted bond.
The first time that I handled a murder case and I learned that the standard bond was only $20,000, I was shocked. Manuela's daughters were upset, rightfully so, because they don't understand that that's what was standard.
It's a good relief that he has been caught, but we should never be standing here right now appealing for him to be out on bond.
The problem was Dror Goldberg was a flight risk. Once you flee one time, the odds are they're going to flee again, especially when you're looking at a murder charge. So his bond should have been higher. I took over the case because the prosecutor who was handling the case decided to run for district attorney. And because he was busy campaigning, he gave the case to Lester and me to handle for trial. Dick had the case for over a year. He had all that time to get ready for his defense. Lester and I had 2 months to get ready for trial. That alone was pressure enough, but putting all these little pieces together as evidence is what is critical to this case. And the big crazy thing in this case is, where's the motive? If you didn't do it because of a robbery or trying to take something from the crime scene, why would you do this horrible crime? What is the motive? It wasn't long before I found out. I was working late one night in special crimes, and a phone rang down the hall. And I answered the phone, and that witness turned out to be Josh Vogel, who was a close friend of Dror Goldberg. Josh Vogel tells me that when they were younger, Dror Goldberg started writing letters to Josh Vogel, and it was what was in those letters that he was calling to tell me about. The letters were very graphic and very descriptive about the need and the desire to want to hurt somebody, specifically to want to rape somebody, to want to kill somebody. He talked about how it was changing him and turning him into a violent, bloodthirsty young man, and he liked it. It was crazy to think somebody would feel this way, coming from this, what you would think would be an all-American boy. But Dror Goldberg was writing it down exactly what he wanted to do. So the idea that this was really a thrill kill is building. So we took those letters, asked for a hearing, had the judge read the letters to present to her the fact that she has a man out on bond out of her court, walking around with these desires percolating in his brain.
As the judge is reading the letters, I can see the judge's face. And right then and there, she said, bond revoked. We're like, yes.
Dror Goldberg was facing trial for the murder charge against Manny Silverio. The charges that could have been filed for the attack and the aggravated assault against the Ingrandos was saved for another day. That could always be used and addressed down the road if something went wrong in the trial for murder. But in this case, the issue was always going to be, why would Dror Goldberg do this? It doesn't make any sense. The people that think they know him best really know him the least. His grandparents, his parents, his friends. He looks like the perfect all-American boy, and he's nothing like that. The defense counters and comes out full speed ahead with, this is mistaken identity. But the eyewitness testimony is what's critical to this case. I mean, I've heard a lot about what Dick DeGuerin does in a courtroom, doing everything he can to poke as many holes in add reasonable doubt. I'd never seen him in trial before, and boy, did I learn a lot.
When we went to court the first time, and when we saw what Dror looked like, I was horrified. He looked so different, because that's exactly what they try to do. They try to make him look different. So now he no longer has his highlights, his hair combed down, and he had gained like 40 pounds. From day one, they were putting doubt that these eyewitnesses were not right. It made me very nervous.
Roberta On the witness stand, I thought she did great. She came across as very consistent and credible, but Dick tried to pick on her in cross-examination with the color of Drawer's hair.
He asked me about the hair. I said, what color hair he have? I said, sandy hair. He said, oh no. He said, look at him. He have dark hair.
Dick was trying to say to Roberta, if you look at Drawer in the courtroom today, his hair is dark. And if you look at his hair in the video lineup, it's a different color than Sandy. There's no Sandy hair here. Why are you saying Sandy hair? You got the wrong person.
You know, hair is my business. I really talked back to him. He did not expect it neither.
Also testifying, this witness, a medical resident who took down a license plate number.
When Kelly was asking me questions, the eyewitness accounts and the photo lineup, and it was just basically like story time. It was very casual. When Dick DeGuerin was asking me questions, he had a co-lawyer with him too, and they were asking me multiple questions, and they seemed to ask me the same question multiple times and trying to change the words a little bit to try to, I guess, trick me up.
Oh my God, cross-examination is Dick's best tool and weapon. And I had no idea exactly why or how he did it, but I got a first-hand class at why he's a master at that. I also got to see what he did with enough witnesses to where I could figure out how to beat him at his own game.
He asked me, was I wearing eyeglasses, and, were you wearing them at the time? And I thought Dick was trying to disqualify my testimony.
Dr. Beckman, you couldn't get a better witness. Mr. Cross-Examination Dick DeGuerin that likes to cross people to exhaustion, he knew he was not going to beat that man at asking him questions. He gave up on Randall Beckman because he knew who won that round. In addition to trying to discredit Roberta and then trying to discredit Randall Beckman, he also brought in Elizabeth Loftus. Elizabeth Loftus is a PhD that took it upon herself to become an expert in eyewitness identification. Unconscious transference is what Elizabeth Loftus tried to say happened to Randall Beckman. That because Randall Beckman worked in a hospital where Drawer Goldberg's father also worked, Dr. Beckman had to have seen Drawer Goldberg at lunch one day with his daddy, and that was implanted in his brain, and that's what was causing him to identify Drawer Goldberg as being the person running out of the wig shop. That's what she said.
We're sitting there like, really?
Well, when you pick apart all of the underlying reasons why she says you shouldn't trust eyewitness identification, none of them applied in this case. Dr. Loftus talks a whole lot about how when a gun is pointed in your face, you can't focus on the person holding the gun because you're too worried about the gun. Well, maybe great if that's Roberta, but it didn't apply to Randall Beckman. And then her theory of unconscious transference. Maybe that applied to Randall Beckman, if you want to believe that crazy story, but it didn't apply to Roberta. It was very clear. She never even bothered to read one page of the police report.
DeGuerin really thought by putting this expert witness there, that was it. It was a done deal. Kelly did her homework, his homework, and everybody else's homework. Yes, she did.
I read every word of every one of her books and took her to town on her theories. By the time she left the witness stand, she said that because of me, she never wanted to come back to Texas. Every prosecutor understands that whatever your facts might be, however strong they might be in a murder, you still need to establish a motive. So in order to do that, and to do that in this case, we called to the witness stand the one person in this world at that time who could prove what Drawer Goldberg's motive really was. We're halfway through the trial, and the case is going really well from all that I can see, but Dick is doing his level best to try and poke as many holes in the case as he possibly can. We called a lab tech with the HPD Crime Lab who testified to the jury about the fact that when the Lincoln Navigator was processed, they found in the floorboard area, the driver's side, and all around that area, wick fibers.
So DeGuerin goes in there and tries to dissect this, and he's saying it's a wig fiber. You don't know what wig it came from.
See, that's another thing that I've learned that Dick DeGuerin always does. He always tries to have an answer for everything, and he always overplays his hand and goes too far. Dick had to come up with an explanation for the wig fiber. So what Dick came up with was he put Drawer Goldberg's sweet little old grandmother on the stand to testify that she went to that wig shop a couple of days or a week earlier, and she must have gotten some wig fibers on her shoes, and she wears a wig sometimes even herself, and that's why wig fibers ended up in that dang Navigator.
Grandma was so coached that the minute Kaylee asked her one question, threw her off completely.
Which was my favorite.
When I asked her, well, where'd you sit in the car, Miss Goldberg? She looked at Dick because she didn't know what to say. So that blew up in his face, too.
I mean, Kelly's discrediting her completely. But what did the jurors believe? No fingerprints, no DNA, no murder weapon.
The knife is not the right one.
No motive. There's no motive.
We're always taught that a motive is not a required element to prove in a murder case, but if you can't show why someone would commit a murder, especially one like this where there's no connection at all between the defendant and the victim, you're not going to win that case. To prove the motive, we had to try and establish that Drawer Goldberg did this murder because of a need and a desire to want to see what it felt like to kill somebody. So in order to do that, we called to the witness stand the one person in this world at that time who could tell us what kind of brain ticks inside his head. Back in 1995, when Drawer Goldberg was a student at Bel Air High School, Susie Grice Pendergrass was an officer assigned to that school at the time. When Drawer Goldberg leaves the school parking lot and throws a beer can out the car window, they stop the car, they get him out of the car, then they take him to the principal's office.
I am looking through his backpack, looking for dope, marijuana, whatever he's got in there. Then I get a spiral notebook out, start going through the pages. Kids will put dope anywhere. And when I flipped the page, there was a title, How to Kill Women. He says that the urge to kill is getting stronger. Doesn't know if he can fight it. I've never been so disturbed and so emotional over a writing in my life.
The journal ended up being returned to Michelle Goldberg, Drawer's mother, gone forever. But because when Susie Pendergrass read those writings, it affected her so greatly, she can recall what it said. The law allows for you to talk about that because of the impression it made on her at the time.
He says, I'm making tiny slits all over her body so that when she looks down, she'll see red.
He saw cut here, his neck, just.
And she knows she's gonna die. I'm asking her, do you feel pretty?
I'm gonna cut your ear, I'm gonna make you pretty.
I'm gonna do it some more. Do you feel pretty?
Wow. And then you realize what a psychopath he really is.
Susie testified, and it was very clear to everybody in that courtroom this was a thrill kill. Inside his mind ticked the head of someone really, really sick and depraved. It's just, wow.
When she starts talking about the notebook and says everything in detail, and then we find out that's the things that he told Roberta as he's stabbing her. What kind of sick motherfucker is this?
Yes.
That certainly was something that you could offer to a judge and jury to explain where this person is coming from. These journals were certainly a window into a sick mind.
That journal and what it says about Drawer Goldberg is, again, exactly what I said in opening statement. You think you know him because he looks like this, like the all-American boy. None of us have any idea what he's really like, how sick he really is. These writings tell us what kind of a person he is, but just looking at him here in the courtroom, just growing up with him and going to school with him, you don't know what he's like.
I knew he was going to kill. I've never had a feeling about anybody like that before. In his writing, he had talked about wanting an audience of women. Mannequins look like plastic women in the wig shop. There were all these mannequins, and they looked real. And I thought, this is his audience of women. This is his audience of women.
We don't have the murder weapon, and we don't have any DNA evidence, but you know what? HPD and Lester and I have put together a beautiful case against Dror Goldberg. The jury now has the case in their hands, and it's time for us to just sit here and watch the clock tick and wait for their verdict.
It would only take one juror to say, I'm not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. But Kelly Siegler doesn't back down. She didn't back down to Mr. Garrett. She wouldn't back down to the devil himself.
There's anxiety anytime you're waiting for a jury to come back on a trial. You've done your best job, you've taken your best shot, and you just hope it's good enough.
If he's not guilty, he's out on the street like nothing.
It was a really hard-fought case with a lot of things to consider and maybe a difficult case to get your head around.
The verdict is read. Goldberg is guilty of murdering Manuela Silverio at a Southwest Houston wig shop in November 1998.
Guilty?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's all we had to hear was guilty.
That's it.
We have justice for our mother.
Yes.
It's definitely a relief. I wouldn't say there's like joy involved in it because so many lives are ruined, but there's a sense of relief that we did our jobs and everything came out right.
Just before hearing his sentence, Dror Goldberg winks at his family and mouths, "I love you" to them. Just seconds later, Goldberg shows little reaction as a jury sentences him to 48 years in prison.
I heard 48 years and I did not hear life. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he didn't get life. He didn't get life. And now we got to fight to keep him in. A psychopath cannot go anywhere.
So now he's fighting for parole. What do you think about that?
I think he should not go. I'm afraid he's going to come and finish the job.
Have you said your opposition to
yes.
it? Good for you.
I sent the letter. Okay. My daughter sent the letter.
If you protest, that's all you can do.
There's no way the parole board could ever think. I mean, I'm asking them, please don't let him out. An animal like that, the way he murdered and tortured my mother, he would be a danger if he is let out. We all would be in danger.
I had nightmares over this. This was something that never left me. Never left me. I knew he was going to kill. And he's a cold-blooded, sadistic, evil, torturing killer.
He didn't get the life sentence, but we did. And we have to fight for our mom, and we have to do this so justice is served. And he needs to rot in hell.
I want my children not to have to worry about this. And my grandchildren. We just would like to see that he will stay in prison.
You didn't let him beat you.
No, I did not want him
to win.
Yes.
So many pieces of the case just came together like a miracle.
Yeah.
You know that, Roberta?
Oh, yeah.
The best miracle is that you're standing here. You know that?
Yes. I know that. Thank God every day.
Yeah. And a strong lady to go through all this.
Now, it wasn't my time, I think. We become a different person. I don't go anywhere by myself. We are together day and night. We come to work together, we go home together, and just feel safe with him. And we love each other.
That helps.
That day changed their whole world. Yvonne and Yvette fought as hard as any two daughters or family could ever fight their cause for what happened to their mom. She would be proud of them.
You don't have to give the power to who hurt you. You have to be strong.
Thank God we got justice. It wasn't a weak case. It wasn't just a circumstantial evidence case, like that's a bad word. Criminal trials started with eyewitness testimony before fingerprints and ballistics and DNA and everything. And this case goes back to that reminder. Dr. Beckman is a witness from heaven. You had Roberta and you had Susie Pendergrass with their eyewitness testimony. When you put it all together, this was a beautiful case.
Cái số VKRP này của nó ấy lắm view phết nhỉ. Ai soi ra cái gì nó view phết.
Chỉ bạn gặp cái kênh giờ kiểm soát cái gì cái các công tiền các đề.
Mình chơi được đấy. Đêm có thằng nó làm rồi. Có thằng nó làm rồi. 3 tuần trước mình chưa có ghi.
Mình đi sau thì cái nhớ nào có thằng làm.
Nó làm nhiều chứ. Cả cái show unhappily thì ever thì này cũng làm. Nó làm nó hơi thống lâu rồi. Này, tâm mình có cái key này kênh này làm lắm lắm.
I made a mistake here because a manipulative